Hello, my name is James Turner, and welcome to the second installment of our VideoWise in Conversation with series. Today, I'm joined by none other than Frans Calje from PD Ports. Frans, how are you doing?
Very well. Yeah, living the proverbial dream, as I always do, James.
That's what I like to hear, really. So let's just start straight into the questions, really. I've got a lot of stuff to talk to you about today. So the first thing I want to go into is that over the past few years, Teesport in particular has invested heavily in equipment to expand its capacity. But how has that overall impacted your container handling figures for 2021?
Okay, well, so very progressively, and we've been doing this over the last 10 years, essentially, we have incrementally always expanded our capacity, trying to slightly be ahead of the market as your volumes grow. And just before the tipping point where things get a little bit tight, you expand your capacity, you grow, you expand your capacity, you grow. And that has worked very well for us. So progressively, we spent just shy of about £60 million in the last decade or so, effectively enabling us now to become the fifth largest port in the United Kingdom from a container handling perspective. Having said all that, the world around us, and we're going to talk about it as well, has changed quite dramatically over the last year or so. Supply chain issues, something that I think we should talk about in terms of supply chains moving away from a just-in-time principle to a just-in-case principle. So you see quite a lot of congestion in the ports. You see that your dwell time's gone up, therefore your container stock holding has gone up, and therefore your capacity has actually gone down. So things are more tight than I would like them to be. Having said that, the operational platform continues to work very, very well. In Teesport, that is.
Amazing. I mean, you've already talked about supply chain issues just in that part alone. The port of Felixstowe in particular got massively congested in the summer this year and in the autumn as well, mainly due to a lack of shortage of truck drivers, really. But how did that affect Teesport?
Okay. So first and foremost, I think we all need to have a little bit of sympathy for the big container ports, Felixstowe, as well as all the other ones, and not even in the UK, but also in across the world, because we find ourselves in an absolutely perfect storm, if you like, whereby, and I haven't got all the answers, but you see a lot of congestion due to, yes, there's a shortage of haulage capacity, but that's not the only single reason why ports find themselves in trouble water. There's an issue at massive volumes being thrown the port's way. I mean, when you consider if you've got a 24,000 TEU vessel, which will pick a number, will need to exchange 15,000 containers or something, it's a huge influx of a single ship bringing lots of containers in, taking lots of containers out, massive peak volumes coming in. From a terminal operating capacity point of view, that always creates lots of challenges. And you can see that the ports have been struggling, the bigger ports have been struggling with this kind of volumes, these massive peak volumes for a while now, in combination with a global shortage of equipment in terms of containers not being restituted to China or the Southeast Asia quick enough, in combination with massive demand of consumers, in terms of, apparently there's a lot of discretionary money floating around the economy where people are just buying so much more than we've ever seen before. With now, also from our perspective, more red tape and bureaucracy in terms of custom formalities. Now we've left the EU, so you've almost got 5-6 individual factors all coming together in a single peak wave of disruption and creating issues, which actually is having quite a profound impact on the port sector. So there's no one single factor, i.e. haulage in itself, it's actually creating the issue. It goes far wider than that. And it's very easy to just put a single blaming finger to, well, that's the issue and you have not done this or that. It's more complex than that.
No, I completely agree. I mean, one of the things that it's led to is a lot of vessels and carriers avoiding Felixstowe to avoid the massive congestion, though. But surely that led to a lot of carriers and services coming down to Teesport to avoid that.
Yeah, so what we have seen, so actually we have seen above market growth now consistently for the last 10 years. We actually quite dramatically sort of bucked the trend in the UK. And where's the average? So the average growth in the UK over the last 10 years growth has been about 2% on a CAGR basis. We've grown by an excess of 10 to 11%. Right? So we've sort of bucked that trend. Now, we always had a bit of a hybrid approach to the market. We can almost see an equal split between what we call deep sea volumes coming from Far East, transshipped in the major ports coming into the UK, and then what we call short sea traffic. So this is the inter-European trade. And actually, as we expected, we saw a massive growth in the short sea sector, i.e. massive growth in European. Why? Going back to your earlier question, there are a lot of, it doesn't make a great deal of sense nowadays with shortages of hauliers to drive a truckload with, I don't know, bookshelves from Latvia to the UK all across Europe. You can't find the drivers. It's environmentally insane, if you ask me, in combination with lots of now perceived delays in terms of custom formalities. Actually, shipping it makes a lot more sense. So for all these sort of kind of hybrid reasons, we saw a massive upturn in terms of volumes, both short sea and deep sea. And that's caught us slightly by surprise. So we've seen some congestion, but nowhere near what our colleagues in the port sector have seen. And yet again, we are now accelerating our capacity enhancement plans, to enhance the existing platform that we have, which we'll do this year in 2022, but also we're now fast tracking our development in terms of developing our far bigger container platform, the big terminal we're going to build in Teesport, to the extent we're now doing the site investigations. We're actually talking to a partner to develop the terminal together, and I'm looking forward to make a reasonable big announcement anytime soon.
Amazing. I can't wait to hear them. Going into some recent news, really, the BPA recently commented on the government's levelling up plans after it was published in the white paper, mainly criticising the lack of emphasis on the port sector in the UK. My question to you really is, do you agree with their point in that the UK ports need extra funding to avoid these congestion problems in the near future, if that happens again?
No, I wholeheartedly disagree with that particular point. The one thing that has quite successfully set the UK apart is from, let's say, its continental counterparts, is that the UK port sector, the major ports, if you like, they're all privatized. So there's a lot of private money going to the ports, actually enhancing the capacities, the service offering, the infrastructure. And that model has been working very well for the last 30, 35 years. And I think it's a bit of it's a very easy thing to say, saying, well, actually there's congestion, so we just go to government and sort of hold our hand up. I think it makes you very, very lazy. And if there's one thing that the private investment in the major ports in the UK has told us, that actually there's huge appetite from private investors, big pension funds, big institutional investors, to fund those kind of developments at no cost to the taxpayer. And actually it made the UK port sector a far more competitive sector than what you actually see in European continental mainland. So no, I really disagree with that point. Yeah.
No, definitely, that's fair enough. I mean, I think one of the things I wanted to go into, again, more like current affairs kind of topics, is the Paris Agreement. And net zero targets are, they're getting increasingly important to every port in Europe at this point because of this. But can you delve a bit deeper into Teesport's and PD Port's wider decarbonisation targets?
Yeah, okay, well, that's a really interesting one. And it's one thing that's really, really close to my heart, both personally as professionally, as a father of three and as the CEO of PD. And we are one of the largest supporters in the UK. We're the fifth largest supporter, for those people who don't know, not just the containers, but bulks, just the overall tonnage. I mean, we handle roughly about 30 million tons of a variety of different commodities through the port, key piece of national infrastructure. Okay, and what really, really annoys me consistently is that, especially in the sector that I'm working in, is that people sort of align themselves to get to net zero by 2050. I think you're actually kicking the can down the road to another generation. I actually won't be around, I think, in 2050. I'll probably be dead. Which sort of saying that my kids have to sort it out when actually the climate crisis is here and now. And it's our responsibility to do something about it. So we've made it actually a focal point in our own strategy, in the way we were going to reposition ourselves, reinvent ourselves almost in terms of the business that we are, which is actually going to be competitive for the future. And the reason why I say competitive for the future is, A, I think you've got the moral obligation to do something today if you can. B, if you actually lead from the front, because I do believe that the public will start to vote with their feet. People like you and I, we will start to put pressure on the retailers and the people we buy our daily commodities from, saying, actually, how are you sorting out your supply chain? And those who haven't got it in order from a carbon footprint will start to shun. Will say, you know what, I won't buy from you. So the retailers will be looking for carbon-friendly entry points, ports, supply chain solutions. And if you as a port think it doesn't apply to you, I think you've got something coming. So here's the point. We're going to get to net zero by, well, can I say 2023? I can say that. Actually, it's going to be at the end of this year, but it will be by 2023. Why? Because this is something that we started to do in anger 4 years ago. Very simple things you can do. You can procure all your electricity from fully renewable resources. That's just a procurement decision. It's going to cost you more money, but you need to put your money where your mouth is, and that's what we've done. And then we've got a very defined, actionable strategy, which per year has outlined exactly what we're going to do, where, when, how much it's going to cost. Another thing that we're doing, we're moving away from fossil fuels everywhere we can within PD ports, meaning everything that we can electrify, we're electrifying. It comes to a cost as a business. That is the cost of actually positioning yourself in a completely different way from net zero, and then ultimately getting to carbon neutrality. We're actually now working on a strategy that, knowing that we're going to achieve net zero in the next 12 months. So how we're going to get to carbon neutrality then? So the engineers are doing a significant amount of work in terms of what else we're going to do. And there's every expectation on my part, on my shareholders' part, that PD Ports is going to be carbon neutral before 2030. Right? That's a huge ambition. But once again, there's the bit that sort of sits with you from a moral point of view. There's actually the bit that sits with me, thinking as the CEO of PD. I think, and this is not speculation, because everybody keeps telling me this is what we are going to do, from a retailer perspective, from a big commodity movers perspective, everybody's telling me, saying, we need to sort out our supply chain from carbon footprint. And if we can offer them, from a PD Ports perspective, a solution through, let's say, Teesport or Harleport, the operations that we operate, that actually is carbon neutral, we will become the employer of we will become the port of choice going forward.
That is very refreshing to hear. And I wish you all the luck with everything in terms of that topic in the future. That's really is.
Yeah, well, you say I appreciate that. I don't think it's actually luck. I think it's just determination. You just got to get on with it. I'll give you a great example. I went to the board, to the shareholder, Brookfield, to ask for 2 new cranes. And you've got a choice here where you buy 2 new cranes, which are fossil fuel fired, gas oil, or you go for a fully electrified crane. It's almost exactly the same crane, does the same thing, lifting capacity, all the kind of bits and bobs. The electrical crane is £1 million more expensive each. So I'm going to the board saying, we just got to spend £2 million more. It'll help us on our growth, or on our delivery path for not only net zero but carbon neutrality. And it was an argument. Shareholder says, yeah, fair enough, thumbs up, on your bike, off you go.
Amazing. I mean, going on to my last question now, and I want to thank you again for your time. Thank you for joining me today as well.
Anytime, James.
Thank you very much. I hope we can do this again same thing in the future. But could you give us a quick broad outlook of how 2022 might look for both Teesport and PD Ports as a whole in the container sector?
I think it's going to be, it's a good question. As I already said, I can see a lot of movements in terms of the whole world has moved away quite radically from a just-in-time principle. Containers came in, off they went, to just in case. So we see that the stock holdings have gone up, our dwell times have gone up, our volumes have gone up. I forecast quite significant growth in terms of volumes, both international, further afield, deep sea, coming out of Southeast Asia, as well as short sea coming out into Europe. I can foresee that the situation we find ourselves in terms of very high freight rates, in terms of increased volumes, in terms of higher dwell times and higher stock holdings within the terminal are going to perpetuate itself till at least 2024. There's lots of shipping lines I'm talking to quite regularly. I actually had a major deep sea line in my office last week discussing the outlook, and their expectations are that we're not going to see any material change from the issues that we currently see, including the very high freight rates, at least till 2024. So I think the world, as we now see today, the new normal is going to be here to stay for quite a long time.
Frans, thank you again for joining me today, and I wish you all the best in 2022.
Yeah, well, James, good talking to you. If you've got any other questions, give me a shout and we'll catch up. Absolute pleasure.